What is going on, guys? Coach Tim here with Fit Couple Coaching, and this is another installment of Ask a Christian Strength Coach, where I take your questions. We get them from YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and I give you my honest, raw, and candid answer. I'm a strength coach. I've been doing this for a very long time, almost 20 years, if you can believe it. I'm also a dietitian. I have a bachelor's degree in exercise physiology and a master's degree in sports nutrition, and I've been working with people for a very, very long time. So hopefully my answers can help you. So if you can take something away, glean some information, and hopefully apply this to your everyday life and get some better results. As always, if you have any questions at all, please comment them below because we answer these in real time. So without further ado, I have a tendency to ramble, so I'm gonna dive right in. I've chosen 5 questions today, and we're just gonna rip them off. All right, so number 1. All right, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm tracking my food, I'm lifting, I'm staying consistent, but the scale hasn't moved in weeks. What am I missing? So what you're describing here is what I would call a plateau. Now, I love context with questions. So when you ask questions, always make sure that you let me know what your actual goal is. So I don't necessarily know if this person is trying to lose body fat, gain muscle, what their actual goal is. But I'm assuming when they say the scale hasn't moved, I'm just going to take a wild stab that this is a fat loss question. So if you are truly doing everything that you're following the plan, you're checking all the boxes, you're getting your steps in, you're not eating off plan at all, you are training relatively intensely, and nothing's happening, you've reached a plateau. And I think the very simple answer here is, in general, when you haven't made a change, if it doesn't happen for a week, I'm not necessarily concerned, because one of the biggest lessons I had to learn as a coach, and even as an athlete myself, was to be patient, let the diet do the job. If we're always chasing something week to week to week, a lot of times we get too aggressive and we'll make too quick and irrational calorie cuts, and we end up depleting ourselves too fast. So what I would do from here is I would make a small adjustment to this plan. And let's say this person's eating, a standardized meal plan, like 5 meals a day, gram of protein per pound, blah, blah, blah. I would actually remove about 10% of their calories from their plan. And the way that I would go about that is incredibly important. I wouldn't just cut them indiscriminately from, any meal. I would retain all the protein intake. So the protein is never going to get touched. If they're eating 30 grams of protein per meal, that's what they're going to always be eating, no matter what point of the diet. Whether they're whether they're really deep in the diet or they just started, it's always going to be the same protein content. What I am going to do is I'm going to make an adjustment with carbohydrates generally. And the way that I want to do this is very intentional. I would pull, let's say 10% of the calories. And let's use just a really easy example. This person's eating 2,000 calories a day. And you want to make a 10% reduction. That's about 200 calories. It's exactly 200 calories. So how do we go about removing 10% of the calories? I'm going to take it from carbohydrates. So 200 calories in carbohydrates, about 50 grams of carbs. Now I can pull that from any part of the day, but I prefer, and I've always found the best result doing it this way, is starting by pulling those carbohydrates from the meals that are furthest away from the workout. So if you're somebody that trains in the morning, we kind of want to protect the carbs pre-workout and post-workout specifically, and maybe even the meal afterwards, but definitely pre and post. Now I'm going to pull those carbs from the meal before bed or even from dinner time, right? And I kind of work backwards. So I will pull the calories, or the carbohydrates in this case, from, let's say, meal 5, which would be their last meal of the day. And then once there's no carbs left in that meal, then I'll move back to meal 4, and then I'll slowly titrate it back. But that's where I would start. I'd start with a 10% calorie reduction, specifically from carbohydrates, specifically from the meal farthest away from the workout. Now, as a coach though, when I hear this and I see this, my spidey sense goes off. Generally, when someone says I'm doing everything right, I want to know exactly what that is. So I like to just perform a simple audit, and I will have a client of mine send me pictures of everything they put in their mouth, right? So they will send me their breakfast, what they're actually consuming, the weights, the measures of everything that they're consuming, the seasonings that they're using, the whatever method they're cooking it with, so any oil, any spray, anything and everything that goes into the mouth. I'll even have them send me, what kind of drinks they're having, because a lot of times they're doing everything right, but there's sneaky calories that are coming in that they're not aware of. So a good example of this was, I had a client way back when, it was probably like 6-7 years ago, and she had done really well, and then for whatever reason she just hit a wall. nothing was happening. And I wasn't really comfortable bringing her calories down any lower because she was already consuming like 1,300-ish calories. She was a smaller lady. And I was like, okay, you should be losing weight on this calories. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Go ahead and we're just going to do a little audit. Send me pictures of everything. And she was using the, I can't believe it's not butter spray. And she would go through one of those bottles in a day. And yes, if you turn around the label, it says 0 calories on it, but the serving size is like 0.3 seconds of a spray. So it's like a little spritz. If you actually use the entire bottle, there's hundreds and hundreds of calories in that bottle. It's just meant to be used in such small spurts that if it's less than so many calories, like less than 1 calorie, if it's like 0.9, they can legally say it's 0 calories. So it might have been like 0.9, 0.8 calories, and she was doing like 300 servings of it a day. And so I was like, yeah, that's our culprit right there. Why don't we remove that? I want you to start barbecuing your chicken or using the air fryer or the oven. You can bake it. I gave her a couple different options. And wouldn't you know, her body fat started to fall really fast. We actually never had to drop the calories at all. So that's another side that I just want to bring up, because generally speaking, when someone says they're doing everything right, and it's not like they're being lazy or malicious or anything like that, it's generally they're not aware of all of the calories that they're consuming. So do a complete audit with a fine-tooth comb, go through everything, your vegetables, your cooking sprays, literally everything. Even, another one is I had a client that was doing like 3 packs of sugar-free gum a day. And yeah, they're like 5 calories in a stick of gum, and there's like, 15 pieces of gum in a pack. So they were getting another like 120, 200 calories in a day just from chewing gum. And they thought it was totally fine because it was the sugar-free gum. And yeah, if you just have 1 piece of gum, it's no big deal. But when you have 50 or 70 pieces a day, yeah, we are now starting to accrue some serious calories. So something to think about. All right, number 2, if my computer will play along. All right, everyone says to eat more protein, but how much do I actually need? And does it really make that big of a difference? So this is a fight that I see on the internet all the time. I thought we would get over this at some point. So I will squash it as best as I can. So we have one side of the camp that believes you need like an obscene amount of protein. And I lived in that camp for a very long time. And when I say obscene, we're talking like 1.5 grams to up to 2 grams per pound of body weight that you have. So like for me, I'm roughly 250 pounds. That would be 500 grams of protein a day. And yes, I ate 500 or more grams of protein per day for a long time. And all it really did for me was give me mad digestive issues. So that's the one side of the camp, and they will bleed for that belief. The other side, if we look at almost like the RDA, which, RFK, he made some amendments to the dang food recommendations, but it used to be like something like 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight was the dietary recommendation for protein. Well, in my personal experience, both camps are wrong. And the answer, like it is almost always, is somewhere in the middle. Now, it really depends on your goal, but I'll set some basic guidelines. Yes, we need high protein in our diet, but I would define high protein as around 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh. And there's some caveats on that. So if you are incredibly overweight, like let's say you have like 50, 60 pounds to lose, I would go off of lean body mass. So for instance, let's say I was 300 pounds and my body fat percentage was like north of like, let's say 25. I don't really need that extra weight, that extra 50, 60 pounds is not really metabolically active tissue. So I'm really just going to shoot for a protein intake that supports the lean body mass that I actually have, which is actually what we're basing this off of. So I would still eat roughly around 250 grams. So a really basic way, aim for 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh, or you can shift that down, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose, to 1 gram of protein per pound of your goal weight. So if your goal weight is 130, shoot for 130 a day. And ideally, we want to eat that in evenly distributed boluses throughout the day. So generally speaking, every 4 hours is a really good reference point to consume a good dose of protein. And what we're actually looking for there, and I'm trying not to get too dang nerdy on you, is the leucine content within the meal. So leucine is a branched chain amino acid. It's also the trigger for muscle protein synthesis. It kind of turns on the machinery that just down signals all the processes that happen that repair and build and generate new tissue. We need to have at least 3 grams of leucine within a meal, and generally that comes out to roughly about 30 grams of protein in any one sitting. So if you're eating like 5-10 grams of protein, you're probably not getting adequate leucine to really turn on that machinery. So we want to get adequate leucine, but it seems like we can only really stimulate it. And this is based off of like Dr. Layne Norton's research on protein synthesis. We can only really stimulate it maximally like every 4 hours. So that does kind of go along with like eating multiple meals throughout the day. Maybe not bodybuilder style, we're eating like 6 or 7 times a day, but at least 4. 4 to 5 feedings a day is going to be adequate to break apart our protein intake. So we're making sure we have a good dose of leucine, but all the other essential amino acids coming in and being in our bloodstream throughout the day, so that way we can start accruing protein, or it's accreting protein, which is really just sciencey for gaining muscle tissue. So yes, it does make a huge difference. Now, that's the physiological side. The side that you probably care about is like, how does it impact me day to day? Number one, protein is the most satiating macronutrient. It takes a very long time to digest, so eating high protein is going to keep you full and satisfied or satiated throughout the day, making it easier to adhere to your calorie needs, especially when you're in a dieting phase. Number 2 is your recovery from workouts is so much higher. And this goes back to the physiological reason of muscle protein synthesis. But if we're getting adequate protein, when we train, we're physically causing like trauma to the muscle. There's actually these micro tears and breakdowns actually happening. Your body has to repair those actin myosin cross bridges. It has to repair those fibers in order for it just to bring it back to baseline and then get stronger and bigger. So we need adequate protein because those are the actual building blocks that do the job. Outside of that there is a ton of nutrients that are in meat, and I'm going to exclude like whey protein powder, and not that it's bad, but if we think about especially like red meat, like steak, like specifically like lean steak, because we want to get the good without the bad, or even like elk or venison or bison, like things like that. They're so chock full of like B vitamins and creatine, and just so much actual micronutrition happens within that meat that you're just not going to get otherwise. And a good example of this is if you have somebody who is let's say they're a vegetarian or a vegan, they have to be very intentional with the way they supplement to make up for what they're lacking in not consuming meat, specifically red meat. And most of the time it is the methylated B vitamins and like the folate and things like that. However, if you consume whole sources of meat, you are going to be covering those bases. So that's the other, and I can literally go on about protein like all day and all night, but I think that's good enough for this question to really answer like how much protein I need and why is it important. All right, so number 3, every time I try to eat more to build muscle, I just start gaining fat. How do you actually grow without getting soft? Yeah, so this is actually really common, especially in the YOLO dieters, like where they're the dream bulkers, where they're really just trying to get huge, bro, and they end up just getting really fat, bro. And the real reason for this is the calorie increases are just too aggressive at any one time. So I'm going to break it down. If you really want to grow a lot of tissue, first and foremost, you got to get lean first. Right, if you're already starting at 15+% body fat and you try to bulk, your insulin sensitivity is already very compromised, and you're more than likely going to add a disproportionate amount of fat to muscle. So we'll just use like simple math. Let's say you gain 10 pounds and your insulin sensitivity is garbage, and let's say you're 18-20% body fat. You will most likely put 8 of those pounds will be coming from body fat and 2 will be coming from muscle. And I'm just throwing out random numbers, but the idea is it's very skewed towards body fat gain and not so much towards muscle gain. Now, if you get really lean, so this is what I always recommend. This is why you see bodybuilders like post contest when they're like super shredded, like 3% body fat. They have the utmost insulin sensitivity, and when they put on body weight, it's providing that they do it in a controlled fashion, it is almost exclusively going to be muscle. So it might be shifted 8 pounds of muscle to 2 pounds of body fat versus the other way. So first step in gaining muscle is get lean. Like, you don't have to be bodybuilder lean, but get to the point where you can see your abs. I would say sub 10% body fat, full visible abs. At that point, once you're ready, when you're lean enough, then you want to reintroduce food slowly. You don't want to go YOLO bulking. You want to make sure that you're intentionally raising your caloric intake very slowly. And what does slowly look like? So let's say I'm just, again, use the same example. You're cutting, you get pretty exotically lean. You get down to about 2,000 calories a day and you're roughly 6% body fat, we'll say. You got real sizzled for summertime. At the end of your diet, you're down around 2,000 calories. If you jump straight to 3,000, your metabolic rate is not fast enough, for lack of a better word, to support 3,000 calories, which is 1,000 calorie increase. If we extrapolate that over the week, that's a 7,000 calorie surplus per week, which is going to give you about 2 pounds of body fat that you're going to gain per week on average, right? Now, instead of at like that big surplus, let's say we actually just do a 10% surplus. We jump you to 2,200. But like we talked about earlier, we put those in the form of carbohydrates because your protein should be set. So you add in 50 grams of carbs and you let that ride for a week or two. You let your body, and this is generally what I see, is you introduce a little bit of food, your body takes a small uptick in weight. And then over the course of 7 to 10 days, that weight will come back down because your metabolic rate has now picked up. Your body says, hey, we got more food coming in, so it's okay for us to raise our metabolic rate, get a little bit more loosey-goosey with our energy use. And at that point, you take another 10% increase. So maybe you go from 2,200 calories to 2,500 calories, which I know is not exactly 10%, but you get the idea. Let that ride for a couple weeks. And then you slowly bring those calories up to the point where when you're at 3,000 calories, it might have been a couple months that it took you to get to 3,000 calories, but you're relatively just as lean as you were. Your weight will go up slowly, but you won't put on near the body fat. And if we follow that approach, and simultaneously, this is just as important, is the training needs to increase at the same time. So what do I mean by increase? If you are getting stronger, and especially in hypertrophy rep ranges, like let's say 8 reps to 20, where we're getting stronger in hypertrophy rep ranges, and we're able to eat more food without getting fat, your body will put on tissue. But a lot of times we eat too much food and we don't generate more intensity and more volume and more effort in the gym, so our body has no reason for these extra calories, so we put on more body fat. So intentionally slowly raise the calories, but also intentionally slowly raise the intensity / volume / load that you're lifting in the gym. And if we're able to do those in concert, then your body will be forced to put on muscle. And your metabolism is going to be really screaming. So the next time you diet, first you won't have much to pull off because you've done this in an intelligent way where you didn't get fat, you didn't put on a lot of body fat at all. So you don't even have to diet for that hard or that long. And you're able to eat so much food. In fact, this was probably the first time that I experienced this in my own practice before I started using it with clients. I always had a pretty slow metabolism. I believe that was like just a genetic thing. So I followed this process just as a proof of concept. And I started like 2,400 calories because that's about what my maintenance was at the time. And mind you, I was still like 230 pounds, 220 pounds. I did this for an entire year and I slowly ramped the calories up. I got all the way up to 8,200 calories and I didn't gain virtually no body fat at all. Yes, it took over a year to get there, but my body was just ripping and roaring through calories to the point where if I missed a meal, I would lose 7 pounds overnight because my metabolism just humming that fast. So of course, n equals 1, right? That doesn't make it valid or true. I started trial on this on clients and I found the same exact thing. I never pushed them to 8,000 calories just because that was ridiculous, but homeboy loves to eat, so I wanted to really test how high I could actually go. But I've taken females that weigh 120 pounds all the way up to 4,000 calories a day without putting on body fat. So it is definitely something you should think about before entering your next fat loss phase as you're bulking. Is like, hey, am I starting from a good place? Am I lean enough? And then am I making slow, intentional increases to my caloric intake so that way by the time I am at whatever the goal is at the end, I'm still relatively lean. I'm very lean, and it makes the next diet part really short and really easy, and I've accrued a ton of muscle and I've gotten way stronger. All right, moving on. All right, number 4. I don't know if I'm actually training hard enough or just going through the motions. What should a hard set feel like? Oh boy. So a hard set, and we're going to keep this in the context of building muscle and strength, right? So, and they're a little different, but we're just going to camp them as the same. So when I talk about a work set, these are not my warm-up sets. These are not my feeler sets. These are the sets that count. When I write these on training programs and it says 3 sets of 12 to 15, these are work sets. And a work set, in my opinion, is defined by you do as many reps as you can with good form and good technique. So let's take a bench press, for example. Maybe you warm up with a bar, then you throw 135 on, then you throw 185, then you go to 225. Okay, your first work set's 275. And the goal is to get between 6 to 8 reps, and you get 7, and you know you can't get the 8th one, so you rack it, right? That would be a good set. Too often do I see in the gym where people will just do the same reps. It's like they'll do 3 sets of 10. And the 10th rep looks just as easy as the first rep. Like, it didn't slow down at all. There was no visible strain, and they rack it because, hey, they got 10 reps. Well, damn it, do more reps, because it's actually not the reps that cause muscular growth. It is the proximity to failure and the effort. And I promise you, when you go to true failure, meaning you can't lift that weight anymore, it is a different feeling. It is, you literally, you can't compare it to any other set. And I think that it's a very big debate right now. We talk about like reps in reserve versus like failure training. I think learning to train to failure should be a prerequisite before we start talking about reps in reserve, because how the hell do you know what 0 RIR is if you've never been there? So if this is you and you don't know, hey, what's my true limit and how to push a set to true failure, a couple ways that I really like to go about teaching this. The first way is get yourself a spin bike, or at the gym, most gyms have spin bikes. And I got this from a coach named Matt Jansen, so this is definitely my idea, but it freaking works. Is you get on that spin bike, you crank the intensity up quite high, and you literally go as hard as you can, like a rabid pit bull is chasing you, until you physically can't push the pedals anymore. And yes, your legs will feel like they have battery acid coursing inside of them. You'll feel like you want to die. You're going to want to hate me and write me mean comments on this video, but it will show you what that intensity should feel like. So that would be where I would start. Like, okay, now I can conceptualize, or at least internalize, what this sensation feels like. The next step is on a safe movement pattern. So usually a machine, a Smith machine, certain dumbbell movements like curls and, maybe tricep extension, something that the risk of injury is a lot lower, or your range of motion is fixed. I personally like machines for this. Is you do the same thing. You work your way up. Let's take the chest press machine, right? Whether it's hammer strength or whatever you're going to be using. You warm up, you get up to your working weight, and you literally you tell yourself before you start that set, I'm going to go until this damn thing doesn't move anymore. And so your last rep might look like this, and you do a couple little like partials, and then you set it down. Because if someone put a gun to your head and said, give me another rep, you couldn't do it. And now we know what that intensity feels like, and we know how to translate that into our working sets in the gym. And that's how you know you're working hard enough. Because if you can't lift the weight anymore, then great, you accomplish all you can accomplish. Now the kicker here is once we understand that, we want to stop just 1 rep shy of that holy crap, I can't get it off my chest rep. And if I'm logging this, my goal is to do more than I did last week. So like, let's take that same chest press example. Let's say you got 9 with 3 plates on each side, call it 315. The next week, your goal is to get 10 or add 5 pounds to each side and get 9 again. So we're raising the stimulus in some way, some shape, some form. We are giving our body a novel stimulus, meaning something new it's not used to. That is the way that we force or coerce an adaptation. It's not by accident. It's not by, winging it. You do it very intentionally. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it freaking hurts. Yes, it burns, and it will make you sore. But the idea is that we're not leaving this up to chance. If you want to grow and get stronger, you have to do stuff that you aren't doing currently. So take that for what it's worth. All right, last one. I'm really consistent during the week, but weekends always mess me up just enough to stall progress. I'm not going crazy, but clearly it's not working. What should I fix? This is something that I see like all the freaking time. It's I know this isn't the proper way to use the term, but I call these people the weekend warriors. Normally it's used in a completely different context, but they're locked in Monday through Friday, but then Saturday, Sunday, they aren't locked in. And the simple solution to this, and not to be like tongue in cheek, is treat your weekends like you treat your weekdays. If you have the discipline to food prep, to have your meals with you, to get your walks in, to get your steps in, to get your training in, whatever, around a freaking work schedule, then you definitely have the discipline to do this on Saturday and Sunday. What you're doing is you're just being lazy. You're thinking that, hey, like, I'm just gonna go throughout the day and get it done. No, make sure you have your meals packed. And hey, if you and your family go out to dinner, then hey, you had an extra meal packed. Whoop-de-doo, you can save that for another day. But just make sure you're prepared. If we're not prepared, then hell yeah, if you're taking your family out and you get caught up, you're doing some stuff, you don't want to be that guy and be like, I can't go because I have to, like, get a meal in. I mean, I've been that guy. It's not a good look. But the simple solution is just be prepared. Have your meals prepped, and then bring them with you wherever you go. Like if you're going out to, wherever you're going with your family, let's say you're going to, have a picnic or something like that, and you're going to be gone for about 3 hours, hey, bring 3 meals. Bring them with you. Make sure they're with you. It's the same thing you would do at work. You bring your food with you so that way you know that you are going to get your nutrition in. And when it comes to training, it's simply just the same exact thing. Schedule the time for training. And hey, if you're a family guy, like I am, if you spend your time with your family, it would behoove you to just train first thing in the morning on Saturday. I don't train on Sundays. I keep that as a Sabbath. But hey, train first thing Saturday morning, get it out the way, eat breakfast, go train, and then the whole rest of the weekend is open. Just make sure you have your meals packed and you will be totally fine. All right, so that is it for this episode of Ask a Christian Strength Coach. Make sure to drop your questions, your comments below, and I will answer them in subsequent episodes. Also, again, if you haven't subscribed to this page, please do, especially if you find value or you get anything out of our videos. And if you have any topics that you would like to learn more about, make sure to comment below. Either way, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you soon.